Okay, we've got a 2024 Mitsubishi Outlander. This one has the electronic parking brake. In order to put this one in maintenance mode to begin replacing the brake pads, you need to have your scanner, and it needs to be updated to the newer models. Mine, at the moment, needs an update, so I wasn't able to use the scanner. There's supposed to be a way where you can push the brake pedal and move the switch back and forth 10 times to put it in maintenance mode. I tried that. It didn't work. I've always had a hard time getting that to work on models that say it works. Maybe it does. Maybe I'm just not being patient enough. But there's another way to do this. So first off, to get the caliper off, you're going to use a 14 millimeter on these two bolts. You got to hold this, keep it from spinning if it is, with a 17 millimeter wrench. Once you take this caliper off, there is a way to manually reset that electronic parking brake so that you're able to push the piston back in. It's very unfortunate. This vehicle only has 24,000 miles on it, and it's already worn out the rear brake pads. The dealer won't do anything about it. I'm sure they know it's a problem, just like Volkswagen. Volkswagen's even had a recall on some of their calipers, electronic parking brakes, because it's wearing out pads once a year in 20,000 miles. This guy has been to the dealer, but they refuse to do anything for him as far as fixing that. So it's something he's going to have to deal with every year, changing rear brake pads, because the dealer made a product that is wearing them out. So anyways, I will get this caliper off there, and then I'll show you the manual way to reset that parking brake. Okay, I've got the caliper off. There's your old brake pads. You can see they're not even wearing evenly. One's wearing down faster than the other. So once you get the caliper off, flip it around. There's two Allen screws here and here. You want to tap that real lightly with a hammer, make sure it's in there good, so that you don't strip that out, because then you'll really be in trouble. Take those two screws out, and then we'll pop that motor off. You just give it a twist. Once those screws are out, give it a twist, pop it off. There's a rubber O-ring in there. Try not to get any dirt or anything in there. And then I will show you how to reset that once it's open. Okay, got the motor off. So like I said, once you get those two screws out, you just give this a twist and pop it off. Here's what the inside looks like. Don't mess with that. You can damage that motor, and then you're in trouble. I like to disconnect the connector first back here, so that that doesn't accidentally try engaging while I've got it off. You can just stick if you've got a pick, stick a pick when this is connected, stick a pick right down in there. There's a little tab, if you can see it. That tab, you want to push it that way, and then get you a little screwdriver. You know, once you're holding that tab with a pick, get a screwdriver and just kind of pry this connector back, and it'll slip right off. And then now that you got this exposed, we want to use a Torx bit, whichever one fits in there. I believe it's this one. No, that's too big. Probably this one. Yep, there we go. What size is that? It's a T47. T47. Fits in there. Fits real easy. So now you just spin this with your fingers clockwise until it stops. Once it stops, you can push that piston in and reattach the motor. I will give you a word of advice here. It stopped. And then just pull it out. Do not start this process unless you are certain you have the correct brake pads. Because if you do one side and not the other, and then re-engage the parking brake, it'll throw all kinds of codes, and then you're out of luck. They'll have to take it to the dealer if you don't have a scanner that works. So twisted that in. Now I'm just literally gonna put this motor back on there, twist it on there, you know, cinch it, get it down snug with your hand, and then you'll just reinsert these screws, start them by hand so you don't cross thread them, and then just cinch those down. They do not have to be very tight. This is plastic and this is aluminum, so I don't tighten it down with my impact or my electric tool. I use a ratchet and just get it snug. It doesn't have to be super tight. So I'm gonna do that now. Okay, I got the motor back on, got those bolts cinched down, and we're just gonna pop these old brake pads out of there. And I already took the other one out. And then I am gonna pop this hardware off of there. I've got new hardware with the new brake pads. These are really easy, just pry up, get those off. And then we're gonna use a wire brush, clean that space up, just push in the new hardware that came with the pads, and then we will just slide those pads in there. These little springs push backwards, so you push the pad in and flop it in there like that. So I'm going to do that part now. I'm also going to pull these slide pins out. You want to lubricate those every time you do the brakes. Some of them can get stuck. If you ever get one of those get stuck, get your heating torch out. Heat this part of the bracket up without melting the boot. And then you can get like a 17mm wrench on the back of this and then hit the wrench with a hammer until you force it back out again. But this is a new vehicle, so it's all good. I'm just going to lubricate those, get those new brackets on, those new hardware on there, and put the new pads in. Okay, got the new hardware in there. Use a wire brush, clean that up. And I got the new hardware on there with these. Because of those springs, you got to kind of set it in there like that, push in, and then you can push it that way as you're pushing the pad in. It'll slide in there. Same thing on the inside, only the inside sometimes takes two hands because of that wear indicator that you have to install on the inside pad. Get you a good shot. That can try to catch and rip the wear indicator off, that little metal tab. So you just got to be careful getting that one on so that that little metal tab doesn't pop off. So pads are in. I've already lubricated these slide pins. Now I'm going to, I did not push the piston in on this caliper yet. I got the motor reset. Now, just need to, now that we twisted that thing clockwise in there, now it'll allow us to push that piston in. Alright, there's that, and then we're gonna get this twisted the right way. You gotta work that motor in there first and then slide that back on there like that. I'm gonna put those two bolts back in the back side of that and reattach that wire, and then this one will be done. Then when you do the exact same thing on the other side, once we're completely done, we can go in the car, pump the brake until it's firm so that those pistons come back out. And then I will apply the parking brake, and you will hear it run for a second, and then it'll finally tighten, and then just test it a couple times. All right, that's it. Okay, I'm on the other side now. I've already reset the piston, took that motor off, reset it, got those screws tight. About to put these pads in, just pulled these pins out, lubricated those. Good there. Hardware's good. One thing I was gonna say, the only thing I typically grease these days are these pins. Some people will grease the ends of these pads where they ride inside these slides here. I don't do that. You're asking for dirt and grit to attach itself to that grease, and then you end up with a bunch of dirt and grit stuck in here in a place that's supposed to move freely. I just leave them bare. I never had a problem. If your shims are plain steel back here, you'll want to put a little bit of lubricant on those. The pads I use have this good soft shim, so I don't lubricate that. Again, you're just asked for grease to stick to it if you do. Never had an issue with those making noise on either of those places. So make sure you lubricate these pins. That's very important. I'm about to pop these pads in there. Tighten down those bolts on there again, and then I'll be done. I'll just have to apply the parking brake and check my fluid under the hood and make sure it's in a good place. This customer is not doing a flush. It's such a new vehicle, doesn't need a flush right now. So all I got to do is check the fluid level, make sure it's good. Always check that fluid before you start. Crack the cap loose so that air can flow through there as you push those pistons in. If the fluid is over full, if someone has added fluid to it, you may need to pull some fluid out so that it doesn't overflow when you push the piston in on the caliper, because that fluid will go back through the lines and raise the level in the reservoir. So if you got all those things, you are good to go on changing pads on this car. If you do need rotors, these are real easy once you're at this point. You'll just take out that bolt. Where's it at? This bolt, and there's one more up here. I don't know what size those are. Look like a 21. You'll crack those loose either with a big bar, or you can put a wrench on it. Put the box into the wrench down here, let it hang out, hold it on there with your hand and hit it with a hammer, hit that wrench with a hammer to crack them loose. And then you can do the same thing to tighten them if you can't fit a torque wrench in there to torque it. But take that bracket off, take those bolts off, take this bracket off, slide this rotor off. You may need to hit it with a hammer here and then tap it up from the inside to get it off. New rotor on, make sure you clean your rotors when you take them out of the box. Get all that oil off of them with brake cleaner. Put the new rotor on, put that bracket back on, torque down those bolts, and then you're back to this point. Put the pads in, put the caliper back on, tighten it down, and you're good to go. So that's it on a 2024 Mitsubishi Outlander. Thanks for watching. Bye.